Great to see you again, man. I watch. First of all, I follow you on Instagram, so I feel like I still like talk, even though it's a weird part of life where you see someone. But also, like I see all your AEW stuff because I'm a big wrestling fan.
Get out of here.
Well,
you are from Arkansas.
And you're not even kidding, because that's what we had. Like, we would drive to Memphis as a young kid and go to the Pyramid, and do all the Mid-South stuff. Like, I caught the very back end of the Von Erichs.
So I should know this. Where in Arkansas?
So it's a 600 people small town, but it's
I've wrestled in 400, like Paragould, Black Oak.
All schools we played in sports.
Yeah.
So I'm from a town called Mountain Pine. We would never get a wrestling, but Hot Springs was big enough that occasionally.
So you're that toward Hot Springs?
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
So,
boy, you really are a hillbilly.
Dude, we are hillbilly for sure. For sure. And so, my TikTok is all like 90s to 2000s wrestling. Like, that's my algorithm that I'm on because I watch so much of it.
Oh, boy.
That I followed your entire arc, of.
Which arc?
Exactly. That's what I'm
kidding.
saying. But there are like multiple versions. Let me start with now, because I have friends that played like professional sports, one who played professional NFL for a long time, and I was like, man, after every game, does it hurt? And as a professional wrestler, after every match, do you just know it's going to hurt for a couple days?
Bobby, that is really a loaded question, because this may sound crazy at 57 years of age. I wish I could wrestle more, because the wrestling like every 3 weeks or once a month, I know for the next 48, 72 hours, and I'm all into the recovery and the cryo and the saunas and all that kind of stuff. But there's just something about the lactic acid buildup, and it's rough. I mean, I hate to admit it, but it is really rough after a one-off.
Because I feel like I work out hard, but I do it hard 3 times a week. And even my lactic acid, I'm older. It's old. And so I can't imagine going as hard as you're going, but also once every 3 weeks. That's like doing bench press heavy once every 3 weeks. You'd be so freaking sore, but doing what you're doing with your full body. I would imagine you're so sore, or you've taken so many bumps that it just kills your neck and back.
Well, just the soreness. But I it's funny, since the last time we saw each other, man, my life is, I guess you just sprinkle some of that Bobby Bones gold dust on me. It's changed in so many ways. But, during the pandemic, we were all shut in and all that. And I won't say the word, but I got really sick, and I was down flat on my back for about 2 weeks. And when I was laying there, I said, you know what? I'm going to get in the best possible shape I can when I get out of this bed. And I really put my mind on it. So I've trained harder, worked harder, not just with weights, cardio.
Flexibility, has that become more important to you? Because for me, it has.
I have my streak still going, but I do yoga every morning. Wow. For the last 7 years, or 6 years, however it is long. But
why? Yeah. What have you found about the flexibility part of it?
I live by this. My chiropractor, he's really an applied kinesiologist. He looked at me one day when I was on the table, and he said, "If you want to live a long life, live a long life." And he just meant me. He said, "Man, you got to increase your flexibility," and there's a lot that goes with that. But I have found that I am stronger, faster, feel better. Not when you wrestle, you're still going to have that soreness, but I do the stretching and the yoga and the breathing and everything that goes with it. I do feel a noticeable bit better. I have better energy. Another thing during the pandemic, I got on this. Karen said, "You got to get out of this house." No, she didn't really say that, but I walked every afternoon for like 90 minutes, and before the sun would go down, and I kind of found just the movement, it just really has helped me, not just physically. I think mentally and emotionally as well. Just a little quiet time with God, if you will.
I think wrestling fans are great historians. I'm a mid-wrestling historian, but I think that there's a respect to the wrestlers that have lived many lives for our enjoyment, and you're one of those guys. Do you feel when you go in and your pop happens? Or maybe it's not, it's the reverse. Do you feel the wrestling fan honoring you and other wrestlers that have been around for 20, 30 years in a way that's never happened before?
So I'm not only a wrestling junkie, but I just kind of like data. And when you look at, I'm not comparing it, but you look at U2 or the Stones, or I'll call them all the legacy acts, and just they keep on and they keep on and they keep on, and they're selling the tickets and all that. And then when I go out to your point, and I hear the response. A lot of times we'll call it that nostalgia pop, because there is so much going on in this world today, and our roster is almost 200 deep. But when you kind of look at a graph and the amount of times and the impressions, if you will, that I've been on TV or, just been around, people know me. They like me or they don't like me. But yes, there is a response. And last summer I did about a 10-minute sit-down interview that we aired on YouTube, and I've had more people come up because it was a historical piece, but also I touched on Owen Hart. And really got into that, and we have a tournament at AEW called the Owen Invitational. But that was something that brought the fans that had never heard of Jeff Jarrett or Owen Hart or whatever, it just kind of brought them up like, oh, this guy's been around a while. So, yes, the short answer to your question, I told you how to build a watch as opposed to what time it was. But, yes.
I feel like even the young wrestlers are you almost have to be knowledgeable in the history of wrestling. It's almost like country music, or if you're a young country music artist, you almost don't get the pass unless you can prove, like, you can't get across this part of the bridge unless you prove that you're an actual fan and that you've spent your life valuing it. And I feel like that with the young wrestlers, even towards some of those guys like yourself in the 90s, the 2000s, like, that has to happen.
Bobby, what I have observed is that the guys that really don't know the history of wrestling, they're not around in 3 months, 6 months, and 9 months. They weed themselves out, because at the end of the day, what we do is not easy, and they're like, I don't really like this stuff, and they excuse them way out of the business one way or another.
Can I ask one Owen Hart question?
Oh, fire away.
We were watching that pay-per-view, Kansas City, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you, at the time, were you surprised they continued the show?
Not at the time. I don't know if we talked about this last time, but that was the one thing when I went into recovery that I never processed at all at the time. It was, I hate to say it, but it was work. And I've talked to his widow, Martha, and extensive conversations on that. But it was just, we were in a place that his match was on before me. The backstage stage manager came and said, hey, Owen's going to the ring. You're up next. So I had in my mind about 18 minutes. And like 3 minutes later, they came and said, you're on now. And I went, did a promo, and all that stuff was going around. They wheeled his body right beside me. I went to the ring, did that, came back. Cop was there. I said, I want to go to the hospital right now. But it was, as I hate to say this, but it was the reality. And it called up to me. It was, unfortunately, in my mind, another day at work with a tragic accident.
The blood in the ring. And afterward, it's easy to look at it, because I think I would have felt the same as you as a performer, and there were still a lot of questions, and until Jim Ross came on later and was like, but again, you guys are there on the ground, and I definitely don't want to make this a hard thing, but I've been thinking about this. I think I would have been the same. I'd have been like, we go until we're told not to go, and then we figure it out after it's over.
No doubt. I got in the ring. To this day, I haven't watched that match back for a number of reasons. But I felt the top rope very, very loose, and I went over in the corner where his body had fallen, and there was and I can talk about it now. For years, I wouldn't talk about it, but there was a dip in the ring. There was no blood, and it was where his body had fallen, and I just had a sense on, okay, I in my gut, and I didn't process it and intellectually think it through, but in my gut, I was like, okay, this is bad.
Did I invent the blood in the ring up in my head?
There was a little bit on the corner.
Okay.
Yeah, there was some, but it wasn't
in the ring where you're actually wrestling.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
His head hit the top rope, severed his aorta. So,
do you know the story, Eddie? He fell from the top.
Not really.
He was on a wire, and he came down. Was he with the blue meanie, or was he just Owen Hart?
Blue blazer.
Blue blazer. Yeah.
Blue blazer.
So, and it ended up being like the contraption. From what that I heard, the contraption's fault.
He was. Supposed to rappel in the ring, 82 feet in the air. Was supposed to rappel into the ring, let go of his harness, and then wrestle. He was up top, and however it released, and he fell 82 feet to his death.
Wow! In the middle of the show. Like, did you know that, Kevin?
No.
Yeah.
No, you watched that live, Bones?
They didn't show. So we're watching the pay-per-view, and they didn't show it because the camera was just away, and they came back.
He was just hanging up there ready to go on cue
Yeah.
to be lowered. So they were doing other
Got it.
things like that.
So no, they didn't show. You didn't see it happen. You just saw after, and they kept going, and even watching it. But again, my mind. I've seen so many stories of what was happening at the time that I think even my memory's been affected by all the docus but now you see like people cutting promos live, crying, not knowing because they know what had happened. Anyway, I don't want to stay on that, but I appreciate you answering that. Yeah, thanks.
Can I give you a little ironic piece to that?
Please do.
So back in those days, it was WWF and WCW. That was the May pay-per-view of WWF. The May WCW pay-per-view, because I left WWF and went to WCW. I was on that pay-per-view in a triple cage, and I had to climb 62 feet up the following year, exact same building.
Oof.
The ironic part of all that is it took me a long time, Bobby.
I bet.
Yeah.
Just because, one, even if it's just your friend or your coworker, but two, like you were on right after.
Yeah, it's
Right after.
life.
Why are you still going? Because you're still good too. Like, why are you quitting? I have like all these questions. Like, you shouldn't be as good. Like, you still got it. It's crazy. Like, okay, why are you still going? But also, why are you quitting?
Well, let's just say this. I made the announcement every year. Literally, this is my 37th year, and I did this. I can't say I did it the first 7 or 8 years, but my dad and me had a conversation one year, and out of that conversation, I said, okay, every December I'm going to reevaluate what it's going to look like next year, kind of reflect how am I going to get better and what am I going to do moving forward. And I've done that every year. Years ago, I started a wrestling promotion called TNA, and one of the main things about that, Bobby, is that I wanted to step out of the ring. You know, my grandmother said, you can wrestle, but don't become a wrestler. Basically, keep your business cap on. And then just kind of how all this has transpired and got myself in shape, had no idea what I'd be doing here today. But
Like AEW stuff?
Yeah. I mean, we did a thing with Ric Flair and Ric Flair's last match and went through all that, and that led to another thing. So, Bobby, only by the grace of God am I still going wrestling, but I love it. I will say that I have been really, really, really lucky that I don't feel I've ever worked a day in my life in a lot of ways. Sure, there's a grind, there's a lot of travel, but I absolutely love professional wrestling. Everything about it. I'm one of 5 siblings. The other 4 had zero interest in it. I got bit by the bug about 2 miles from here. This is where I grew up, down by Overton High School, and I just love professional wrestling, everything about it.
How much a part of your creative are you now?
Very little. And that is, that's been an adjustment, good and bad, because I don't have the responsibility. It is a full-time, nonstop juggling act. But I have little to no real input. I can little tweaks here and there, but for the most part, it's not my ball of wax.
Who in your career was good enough that you could, if you had to, just call a match the entire time in the ring? Like you got to do no.
Oh.
Who was that good where you felt, or you had the chemistry with them?
Shoot, I could go down a list. Jerry Lawler, we wrestled many 60-minute Broadways, and he wouldn't talk to me before we went out there, which was kind of amazing to me. Shawn Michaels, Kurt Angle, there's several guys that it's just when you have the ability to kind of have a vision where you want to go and you know your opponent's strengths and weaknesses and play to the strengths and diminish the weaknesses, there's several guys that you could do that with.
Any of the guys ever protect you and you protect them because you knew somebody was hurt during the match and you communicated it and it's like, oh, my right shoulder. So then you continued to have the match, but you just made sure to stay on the left shoulder, et cetera?
You kind of always do that. That goes without saying. When you said protect, I can remember breaking into the business. A wrestler came in who had a hair transplant. You had to protect that. Don't touch my hair. Don't touch my hair. But no, that goes without saying. It's a grind. So you have to be aware of the health of your opponent.
A couple of the bigger guys in my life that apparently worked pretty stiff. And I imagine if someone works stiff, you probably have to stiff back so you don't get hurt. Is that how that would work? Like Goldberg apparently was stiff because he didn't like to come up. He was just he didn't know how to wrestle.
Yeah.
And they say that a lot about Ultimate Warrior, and I never wrestled either one of them, so I don't know how stiff they are, or how when you would wrestle somebody that was stiff, how would you do the dance?
So this may be getting to
Get in the weeds.
Get in the weeds. I think there's a difference between stiff and reckless. Stiff, you just work snug, you lay it in. I'm a huge fan of that. We understand what we signed up for, so get in there and don't make everything so light. So stiff is one thing. A guy who's reckless, the guy that might not have a skill set, might not have two left feet, if you will. You've got to be completely well aware of what's going on, and you just can't put yourself in a position to be hurt. I've had several old-timers, guys that would come up to me and said, yeah, I know why you're around. You wouldn't do A, B, and C, whatever the dumb crap is. And I think there is some validity to that you have to be really aware that don't give your body to a guy that might not be mean-spirited, but certainly doesn't know how to take care of you. And then, hey, man, you're not eating the next week. You're not earning a paycheck. So that's incumbent upon me.
What about moves like the DDT or a pile driver that is heavy neck if gone wrong? Are there specific guys that you were like, I trust them fully if they're going to pile drive or DDT me? And you can say the ones you trust. You don't have to say anything about the ones you don't. But is that a thing? Because, again, those go wrong. That's real bad.
So, we're going to really get in the weeds here, the different moves, but you got to just know how to protect yourself.
So it's on you. If you're getting pile drived, you got to do the thing.
You better know how to protect yourself. Yes, without question. It's, now there's all kinds of new moves and getting thrown and flips and that kind of stuff. And sometimes guys put themselves into a position that, dang well, there is a high risk of injury and they still do it. I just don't think that's smart.
Especially for any longevity.
That's
why I quit wrestling, guys. If you're
that's
there
the
you
reason.
go.
I was just like, I don't want to do it once because I'll die.
Makes sense.
If we, like a guy like Cactus Jack, Mankind, Mick Foley, whatever, I don't know how good of an athlete he was because he didn't look like an athlete. But my assumption is he had to be a great athlete to last that long, and also live through some of the risks he took. Was he a great athlete?
He's a good athlete. He wrestled amateur. But, and we could probably go down a list of guys, but a guy like Mick Foley, he had a passion almost to a detriment. I tell him that to his face, that he didn't mind sacrificing his physical health and gave it to the fans. Look, we're talking about him today, falling off a cage and all kinds of stuff.
That's what I think of. The Undertaker, falling.
Excuse me.
Falling through, jumping off.
Yes.
Yeah. And I just think he has to, because he didn't look it. But that's part of his gimmick, right?
Yes.
Even in Mr. Socko, like all the things he did, he had so much around him. But I always thought, man, he must be a great athlete to be able to live through this many things.
He had a desire to perform like none other. He feels it to this day. You see him walk around today. He doesn't get around as good as a 60-year-old man should.
Sounds like a former NFL player. And guys that we know that are like, oh man, like it's hard for me to even get up in the morning because of that. Dang. When you wore pants, because you mostly weren't tights guy. You had pants for a lot of
long tights.
Yeah. It was all tights forever. Like,
Like
when I
underwear tights?
Yeah, it was weird. Because everybody
You
just wore
mean
tights.
the short tights.
Yeah.
And I wear short biker shorts now.
Yeah. But you had pants. You have a whole
Long pants
yes
for a long time.
But like all those guys from like early Ted DiBiase, Bruno Sammartino, they all had like these gimmicks, and then they would just be like just in tights. And when you started to wear pants, was that uncommon that people were wearing things other than just the tights, the very beginning of pants?
So the easy analogy was, prior to cable television, there were territory wrestling, and it was truly called professional wrestling, and it was a mindset. Well, a guy named Vince McMahon came along and said, I'm going to turn this into sports entertainment. And you kind of look at the transition, and look, in the early 80s, there were long tight guys, but it was you wear long tights or short tights, but all the costuming and persona, and yes, Gorgeous George and the real hardcore wrestling fans going to say, no, they were doing this and that. But the business really radically changed in the mid '80s when Hulkamania came along, and you saw talent, you saw wrestlers on lunchboxes because of the licensing. And so when the licensing came along, that's when the real defined costuming and personas and all that changed.
Who was your favorite wrestler as a kid?
Lawler, Savage, and my original OG was the fabulous Jackie Fargo. I was mesmerized, not just by his strut, but his demeanor. You know, his promo skills, if you will. He would just sit there and talk and make you laugh, and then he'd make you cry. And then at the end of his promo, he would be very calm and cool and just say, "I'm coming down the Coliseum to kick your ass." And I believed it. It was his delivery. He was a really good actor that you wouldn't ever want to call Jackie an actor. He called himself a professional wrestler, but his delivery was so believable.
When did you get in the zone with promos? Because you're great. You're the one of the best ever. But were you all? I'm assuming you weren't always, because I wasn't always good at this.
I was terrible.
Yeah. When did it happen
I do
for
a
you?
podcast, drops new My World, my shirt on every Tuesday. We just recently played my very first promo. I wasn't just bad, Bobby. I was horrible. But I tell you what, the reps that I got, WMC TV and Memphis TV, every Saturday morning, 10 a.m., going out and do that you just got to reps and reps and reps. So it just took me a while. And then when I went to the WWF in 1993, it's the first time that I'd really been produced by someone other than my father. And that was a difficult relationship through the years with my father, just because, yeah, he's my dad, but he was harder on me than anybody, and he did that by design. But when Vince started producing me and brought things out of me, and I tell guys today, man, find somebody that you like, but they need to produce you. Don't produce yourself.
Who, as a peer, was a great promo?
Man, Lawler comes to mind right up top. Mick Foley, really, really good. Stone Cold had his shtick down, if you want. Really, really good. The Rock, of course. I tell you what, you give Road Dogg Jesse James, Brian James, his father was Bullet Bob Armstrong, so he's a second generation. Brian was one of those guys like Fargo. He could make you laugh, he could make you cry, and then he could deliver. Very, 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 very believable. Former Marine, so he knew how to yell.
Yeah, Road Dogg was awesome.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Like he would, he did his own thing. He did his own too, like
Yes.
coming out.
Yeah.
Wrestling, I was watching, and again, it's all my algorithm. It's crazy what that, like the late 90s would allow, what WWF.
Oh, my gosh. Well, yeah, you'd been canceled. We'd been canceled a lot.
Crazy. I know.
Yeah.
To look back and see some of that. There was one where Triple H was eating a hot dog at a table, and he's looking down, and then he's like, oh, yeah. And then afterwards, this girl just climbs out from under the table. Like, that was the kind of, dude, it's wild. But I'm like 12, and I'm like, yes, I'm talking about.
Exactly.
It's a different world.
And cable television was a different world. You know, there wasn't 400 or 500 channels, and certainly not YouTube and streaming and all that. It was still truly cable television. The numbers, when you just kind of look at everything, it was a fun time to be alive in so many ways. But what exposure! Everybody watched it back then.
Well, especially when you're hillbillies. Like, it was our.
There you go.
Yeah, it was our sports.
You didn't want to care about Titans and Preds and football and basketball. That's that highbrow stuff.
No, we wanted to go to Memphis and watch Junkyard Dog.
Exactly.
Because it was, did you watch Iron Claw by any chance?
You know what? I did on a plane. It was about a while after it came out, but I did.
What'd you think about it? The movie versus what the reality?
So my father in 1988 went out there. My dad was right on the end of the movie. And so I lived those tragedies, and I get it. It's Hollywood. They did it for their own reasons. But for me personally, that's why I don't want to sound like, he's nego about this movie. But when I watched it, my experience was I could not remove the real-life mentality of the immense, just unbelievable tragedy. And, like, Chris wasn't even in the movie. And he was, took his life. But wasn't even mentioned. And I know they have their reasons and all that. But so for a movie, I get it. I'm certainly not a movie critic by any stretch of the imagination. But it was, on the one hand, I'm glad they kind of, in a way, celebrated that story. But the real life story is much, much, much more tragic than the movie.
which it's often the other way around, is what's crazy.
Yes, I agree.
And I think, and hopefully, because I did this too, and again, I caught the tail end because Carrie was killing it Mid-South when I was young, and we would drive over. But hopefully people watched the movie and then like Googled and then like read for real. Because that's what I did again. And then was like, oh yeah, I forgot about all this. And I missed the older Von Erichs, right? I wasn't old enough to see the older brothers. Are you sad it's coming to an end? Or do you feel like you're going to come out of retirement for the fourth time like the Stones?
No,
like, what's that?
Look, that's the thing. I was really, back to the situation that, this time in our business, just last week in Asheville, we did a show called Fight for the Fallen, but it was dynamite, and it was our first ever streaming episode. WWE just premiered on Netflix. We're on Max, and so the business as a whole is really transforming it's going to the next level. We just talked about the golden age of cable television. I've been lucky enough, by the grace of God, to be around. Here's the next ride. And so as a part of me signing my final contract, I just kind of put that out there because, look, I'm not riding off into the sunset. I'll be around in professional wrestling. But as far as an in-ring career, I just kind of made up my mind that, okay, this is it. But I think I've also incentivized myself because I want one last shot at gold. I want to go out with a bang somehow, some way, and then be done with it. But I'm not ready, as I sit here today, to be done with it at all.
Did you watch any of the WWE on Netflix?
Yeah.
Hogan got booed hard.
And I did not see that. But
I was surprised.
Now, why?
Only because it was such a celebration of wrestling now, but also they had heroes as well. And I was surprised because, again, wrestling fans are such historians. I was surprised they didn't just cheer for the character, and they didn't. They booed the person. And
well, why'd they boo the person, do you think?
I don't know your friendship, so I'm just going to say this. I don't think Hulk Hogan's a good dude, and so I feel like...
Was it a political boo?
No,
or was it
no, because Undertaker got a pop, big pop. And Undertaker came out and supported Trump. So that eliminated the political thing immediately. Because I was like, let's not make this... I don't want...
Okay, that's why I'm curious. So it was your lens through it.
It was not, to me, it was not political because Undertaker and Kane both sat with Donald Trump and said, we are saying vote for Donald Trump. Hogan, obviously, he was make America great again. It was not political. People respect the Undertaker as a wrestler and a person.
It also, I guess, to me, it jumps off at the page. The wrestling fan, there has been such a stereotype. Oh, my whole life. Oh, you like wrestling. You're a bunch of lowbrow entertainment, blah, 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 blah. And at the end of the day, I've always believed this. Professional wrestling fans are pop culture. Sometimes we've been in front of the curve, maybe sometimes not. But you look in political circles, it's a wrestling promo. You look at all the belts and all the, there's so much. To me, there's a lot of professional wrestling in touchdown dances and celebrations and all kind of things. But the wrestling fan is so easy to understand that I have they put groceries on my table for 3 generations. But I have a lot of respect for the wrestling fans because they will tell you what they like and what they don't like, sometimes more importantly.
And I feel like they're educated.
Yes.
And I feel like they're so educated, myself being one, in that they still enjoy it knowing what a shoot is.
Oh.
Knowing
it's always been irrelevant,
yeah.
But whether it's real or not. And that's where for those that believe, that old saying, those that believe, no explanation is needed. Those who don't believe, no explanation will do about professional wrestling. It's the true fan they could care less. They want to be entertained. But to your point, Hogan didn't pass the sniff test last night.
Dude, it was embarrassing.
And they let him know it.
Yeah.
That's where I respect the wrestling fan. Like, okay, and I'm assuming they were selling the beer, right?
On his shirt. He came out with a shirt. So he comes out and he's like, brother. And I was not expecting them to boo. And I'm like, wow, they're booing. And so he has his beer on his shirt and he ends up doing the shirt rip and it's like Netflix. And that part I got. But he also felt like a shill because he was just coming out to sell his beer. And had he come out in a Hulkamania shirt, I think maybe slightly different. But even then, again, I was surprised that they just didn't cheer the character.
I got you.
But they booed the human.
That's the wrestling fan.
And yes, and it wasn't political again because
I'll take that.
they went crazy.
I saw
loved it.
that. The motorcycle around the ring. Yeah.
Because it was like American BA Undertaker motorcycle, not death motor,
not dead
funeral,
man. Not dead man.
pallbearer, that kind of thing.
But the where was I going? Oh, the world we live in now, just the evolution of the business. I mean, I love your beautiful new studios, and I've heard you got a sports podcast. This may be on this. Just how things have continued to transform. That's wrestling. It's on Netflix. Who would have ever thought? We're on Max every week now, globally. It's amazing where wrestling is going.
It's so pop culture that this interview, I'll be able to play it. It'll be on a podcast. It'll be on the radio show, and different parts of it are appealing to different people for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've done 40 minutes here, and I'll take 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes and put it on the national broadcast radio show. I'll put 40 minutes of it as a podcast. It'll be 20 different 2-minute clips.
Amazing.
It's because wrestling is that now.
Yes.
And you're right, the belts. Like every football team has a championship belt, like interception. I mean, it is.
That's right.
Our president is in the WWE Hall of Fame. I say that tongue in cheek, but it is. I'm going back to the wrestling fan and pop culture and where our industry's at. And, I tell guys, hey, man, if you want to really get good at it, go to YouTube and start watching, because you have that ability, like you said, 2-minute clips, 3-minute clips. Wrestling's everywhere.
Before we conclude, who's like an awesome dude? A famous wrestler that's like an awesome dude. Give me like 3 awesome dudes that I want to be happy, I like cheer, that I like.
He says Hulk.
Well, that's why I said too. I was like, I don't know if it's your friend. I just wanted to give my opinion before I even knew. But yes, who are like awesome dudes?
Oh my gosh, you're gonna put me on the spot here. Brian Danielson. Daniel Bryan is how you may know him.
Newer version. Yes, got it. So now.
Yeah. That guy is salt of the earth, and just I can't tell you how genuine he loves the business. Well, anyway, you don't want me to go into all the characteristics, but Brian. Oh boy, you're gonna say.
What about back in the day?
Man, so many different characters. Remember Dutch Mantel?
I do. That's back in the day.
That's
for
way
me.
back in the day.
That's 80s.
I look at him as one of my mentors, but he was a guy, and I was a promoter's kid, but he took the time. He's very well read. He taught me a lot. When he didn't have to.
80s Dutch Mantel, 90s. Give me 90s. Like a good dude that we know.
A good dude. You know what? Yokozuna.
Really?
Yoko, I got in there 93, 94. One night after a show, he said, "Who you riding with?" And I said, "Well, I got to get to the airport to rent a car." He said, "No, you're with me." And so I rode with him for a while. And the salt of the earth, but I mean a gentle giant.
When he would, he'd stick his butt in your head and he did splash.
That's Rikishi. Yoko.
He wouldn't flop on you?
Yeah, he would do. Yes,
yeah,
he
the
would.
flop, but whatever you call it, the whole, Because he was like sumo.
Exactly. That's him.
Would he like pull the punch? Like, when you do that and you're that big, can you pull that punch a little bit?
His athletic ability was second to none. Roman Reigns, Rikishi, the Usos, it's all Rock's a part of that family. But to me, Yoko's athletic ability was he was incredible because he knew how to take care of you, but he looked so vicious. He was great.
It's huge.
Yeah.
There are 4 people.
And before
do whatever. I would do this. I want to go to dinner sometime and just like
let's
talk
do it.
in real life.
I would love to.
All right, this is like my favorite thing. Okay, go ahead.
Owen Hart. I just cannot tell you. And people, he was a ribber and a practical joker and all this. But man, I was always amazed because growing up in a wrestling family like myself, it's just we just kind of whack jobs. No, it's just a different upbringing. Owen, same thing. He's one of 10 kids and all that. But man, you talk about having your head on straight. Owen, to me, is at the top of that list.
There are like 4 celebrities, and I've been very fortunate in my career to either have interviewed anybody I ever wanted to interview or do shows or just like have relationships. And there's like 4 on my list that I've never been able to get. One of them is the baseball player Mark Grace, number 17 for the Cubs, my favorite player growing up. Another one is David Letterman, like my hero, right? David Letterman was my hero. I saw somebody I'm from the South, but he's from Middle America who looked a little odd. I was an odd kid. I was like, oh, if he can do it. So I have these people in my life that are the white whale. That one of them, of the 4, is a wrestler.
No way.
And I can't get him to save my life. And I think I don't know if you guys are friends or not. What is Sting like?
Oh, wow.
Dude, I've been like, let me interview you. I'll come to you. I wrote about him in my first book because of.
Are you kidding me?
No, I don't know what Steve or Sting or whatever. He will not acknowledge my existence, and it makes me sad, Jeff.
Where's Scuba at?
He's who knows where.
I'll work my deal with him. I don't want you to pay me, but he'll pay me.
Okay, deal.
No. I'm kidding. Do you mind if
I like Sting as a person?
Absolutely, you would.
He's my favorite.
Would you mind if I put out feelers directly to him?
Or you can do whatever you want. I've tagged him. We've reached out to AEW.
That the pass and
did
you just say you would go to him?
Absolutely. I wrote about him in my first book when I talk about influences that made me want, and Sting was one of them. And so I was like, he's my list of people I've never met that I've been trying so hard to get to.
Wow.
And that's what.
I'd like to tell you consider it done, but I've got to find out why.
But would I like him? You can say maybe I wouldn't like him.
You would. He's authentic, really authentic. What a California kid that played basketball and then got in the gym and. Or maybe you don't. So
what? You didn't ask a question. You asked a question in your head and then answered it before you said the words.
Maybe he doesn't know the connection between the Jarretts and Sting.
Who, me?
You.
I do not know that. No, okay, yeah.
So
do you call him Sting or Steve when you see him? Because we call Lunchbox all the time.
When he walks in the door for wrestling.
Yeah.
Stinger, what are we doing tonight?
Got it.
On the phone, hey Steve. Maybe a little both, but so there were 4 guys called the Power Team that were trained out in California. They were all just in the gym. The way Sting got into it, he went to a show at LA Arena and saw Hulkamania and said, "Yeah, I'll kind of give this a shot." So there were 4 guys called Power Team USA that they sent out their feelers to all kind of promoters across the country. That's how you used to do it, black and white, 8x10s. My dad got the photos and said, "Holy smokes, these guys look great." Called him, got Jim Hellwig on the phone,
Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, and Sting. Back in those days, they had landlines, and Sting picked up the other phone. And my dad said, "Hey, I'd love for you guys to come in, but I can only take 2. I can't take all 4." And they're both like, and I'm getting this story. It's kind of close. I think they were, but anyway, my dad said, "I'll take this one and I'll take this one," and it was Sting and Warrior. So Thanksgiving Day, 1985,
hilarious,
in Hendersonville, Tennessee. On Thanksgiving days back in the day, I hear a knock at the door, and I could look down over the balcony from second story, look down the front door, open the door, and I was on kind of the landing. My dad opened the door, and that's the first time I ever laid eyes. I was a junior in high school, and Sting drove cross country, and he started wrestling for my dad in 1985.
That's a really cool story.
And that's and I say all that to say that at TNA, Sting, we called in a favor, him and my father. He came and worked for us when we were literally a startup. Then he came on later full time when we got up and running. But me and him go back to 1985.
And 2 final things. The face paint is the greatest thing to conceal age for anybody. I guess when he would come out, even still, and he's in black and he's got the paint.
Number 2, spray tan.
That's right. Hey, I can say that too for when I have to freaking get on TV all the time. That spray tan is A+. You got to have it. But yeah, no, the face paint or masks.
Yep.
Mysterio. I have a mask because you never get older. It's
yes.
Bones, what do you like about Sting? Why do you like him so much?
Blonde Sting was my introduction, really. Oh yeah, by far Blonde Sting. Back in the day.
Yep.
So Blonde Sting was like my introduction into wrestling. And then that's kind of when I started to play sports. And so I would wrestle like with other dudes. This is weird to say, but we would like wrestle, and I was like, oh, I can kind of play sports a little bit. And Sting was my favorite wrestler, so I would like emulate him, which then kind of gave me confidence to play other sports. So it's kind of that. It's it's a stupid story.
I love it.
It's like a loser story. Like I was wrestling with other boys, and I'm like, I can do. But Sting was like the guy I would like do because anybody could do the Scorpion Splash or the Death Lock, all that. So that's why
I love that story.
No, yeah,
no
it's lame.
idea.
I'm lame.
No, it's not. I love
I'm
the
so
story.
lame. I'm so lame. Final question. People will ask you to record a video or a picture. Does anyone ever want you to hit them with a real guitar? And you're like, I'm not going to hit you with a real guitar really hard.
I'm asked that more than you can imagine. Yes. Yeah. And I'm reluctant. I'm not on Cameo, but yeah, people want me to hit them with the guitars or do this or do that. Yeah. I did a thing last summer. A reverend, he's a young preacher, for the baby reveal. We put
Blue and pink.
Yes. And I hit somebody over the guitar.
But it had to be a guitar, a guitar that was crafted enough to fall apart easily, right?
For sure.
But I'm saying I would imagine idiots would be like, "Hit me with this guitar," and it's a real one, and that would hurt. I mean, that's a whole different ballgame.
I was over in London, and a guy I'm like, "I'm not hitting you with that." He says, "Here's money." I said, "I'm not doing that." He said, "All right, here's more money." I said, "Dude, this won't break. It's gonna knock you out. Please hit me with it." Okay. But I never did.
Follow Real Jeff Jarrett on Instagram, as I do. Promote your podcast.
My World with Jeff Jarrett drops every Tuesday morning.
How do you like doing that?
You know, I told the guy, my partner Conrad Thompson, no for about 2.5 years. I said, nobody wants to listen to my stories. And he goes, trust me, I'm very excited that I did it. And that we've been going about 2.5, 3 years and just recorded yesterday. And, you know, we talk a little bit of current stuff for the first 20, 30 minutes, and then we get into a wrestling story, whether it's a pay-per-view or specific wrestler, a time frame, all kinds of different topics. But it's a blast.
And then we're going to find out, because your next to last match, as we're live, is tomorrow. So it's going to be yesterday when your next to last match. But you're having one more match. You're not saying what it is?
Oh, no. I signed I re-signed last month, December. And and I'm not going to give you the term of it, but it's more than a year.
Okay. This is said promoting final match after this. So okay.
No. What I said last week in Nashville, Bobby, was I've signed my final talent contract, and won't get into terms and all that kind of stuff. But this is the final one. But as far as signing it, I've made a goal in 2025. I'm going to win AEW Gold. It may happen this month. It may happen in December. But this year, you know, that's. A 57-year-old man winning AEW Gold does not happen. And
I'm a fan,
and I'm going to try to make it happen.
I want it to happen.
I'm going to I really am. I mean, I think it's just crazy enough, and it was based off because my wife was like, "Are you sure you want to resign?" And I got 5 kids, and they were like, "Dad, you going to hang this up at some point?" You know, my oldest is 28, and I'm like, "Okay." And I've heard this for a couple of years, and I just kind of said, okay, this is the final contract, but I used the old analogy that my father taught me, that his grandfather taught him, said, hey, if you ever want to climb a tree, don't get under the tree and figure out how you're going to get to the first branch. Get way away from it, figure out how you're going to climb to the top, and you'll have the most success in life. So if I don't get AEW Gold, I'm still trying to get it. I'm going to have a ton of fun. I don't want to just pick up a check, if that makes sense. I'm going for it all.
I'm a massive fan. I love when you come by.
I appreciate you having me on.
I'm going to have Scuba give you my cell phone number too. You live here. I follow you. We should be friends because I
would love to.
I would just.
And believe me, I am going to work. If you knew how shocked I was when you said that, I'm like, what?
Yeah, I will fly. I will fly to him. We will set up. I've tried so many times, and I don't want to put the burden on you to do that. I just
You're not.
Because some people be like, I don't know if you guys will get
along.
He
would love you.
Yeah, tell him that.
He would, because look, he's been around and dealt with. We won't leave names, but you know,
sure,
clickbaiters.
Yeah.
Hey, and Sting has a storied career, but will he knock Hogan? Will he knock A, B, and C, D wrestler? And Sting is he's not. I mean, in real life, but obviously in professional life, but in real life, he ain't about that at all. He is.
Because I ain't either. I ain't about that either. I get my opinions, But well, Jeff, thank you, man. And
No, thank you.
I like to hang out with you in real life someday, and I don't ever say that to anybody. But I think we'd be
I would love
we'd be
to.
friends.
He doesn't say that to
I
anybody.
don't say it to
Jeff.
anybody.
Does
Nope.
he not?
No,
Nope.
never.
Nobody.
I don't like.
honored.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I heard that he does something with baseballs.
Oh yeah, did you sign a ball for us?
No, but since me and you spoke last time, I'm involved in wood bat. It's minor league baseball. It's a college kid, so I'm a part of ownership group up in Springfield, Illinois.
Of what team? Of what?
Springfield Lucky Horseshoes is the name of the team.
Yeah.
It's a wood bat league, and then we just acquired our second club over in Quincy, Illinois, but in the baseball world. So when the folks out there said, "Hey, you got to sign a baseball," and I said, "Right on." That's new since that was last time. around.
Entrepreneur?
Have I told you? No, I just told the story right there. You don't remember the gift. Y'all kicked Lunchbox out that week.
Yeah, you
last time I was
filled
at-
in with us. It was awesome. Yeah.
Okay. So in my office at home, I've got.
I remember giving. Yes, I remember.
What'd you give me? Do you remember?
It was goofy. It was like
Okay.
Yeah.
What a conversation piece. So I'll tell it. Are we over time? We're way
No,
over time.
I would say for 2 hours with you. I don't want to keep you. So tell the story.
But real quick. So I've got belts and all kind of memorabilia of Jeff. I got a Jeff Hardy painting and a couple of different things. But over on one of my guitars, I have the action figure. And it's signed. He signed it for me. You don't remember this.
I don't remember it. No.
Okay. But in 2018, I'd just done the Hall of Fame, and I'd gone back and done a one-off. But there was a guy named Elias, a wrestler Elias, and you signed the figure. And so people will come in the office. I have a business meeting, and they'll look around, and that's cool, Jeff. And oh, look at that collector guy. And then they'll look at me and go, well, now, what's the deal with the Elias figure?
It was the
I
most
said, my man, Bobby Bones.
I found it last minute. It was a whole thing.
I
was
follow
like,
you on social.
I present this
your
to you.
entrepreneurship is second to none.
Well, thank you for coming in. I hope we didn't keep you too long.
No.
Let's get him. Let's get the belt. Get the belt and bring it in.
Ooh, that's my bucket list.
Get the belt and bring it in.
That's cool.
Yeah. And Sting, you're the man. But you, Jeff, you are the man.
No, I'm
All
working
right.
on Stinger.
Yeah, you guys go listen to Jeff's podcast. We'll put it in the show notes for you guys to go and search for it. And love that you're here and hope to see you again soon, Jeff.
Appreciate it, man. Really do.